children and families. I work for the NHS part-time, and I also offer private work, and I've been qualified for over 12 years now. So I've been invited to join Frolo quite a few times already, so some of you may have seen me or met me or talked to me or even contacted me, and that's fine. And usually what I do at the end, or what we do at the end, is I share like my Instagram page and where you can reach me if you want to know a bit more about me. But I hope that's enough for today, because I know there's lots of questions that you want.
Yes, we've got so many questions, so let's just get straight into it if that's okay. The first one that was in the group was, what would be the underlying factors that would cause a young child aged 4 to 5 to behave very differently with each parent? Very well behaved when in dad's care, but difficult with mum.
There are so many reasons for this, so it's really hard to kind of pinpoint, but I can talk about it in general terms. So some of the things that might affect behaviour is the child's relationship with each parent. And often parents think that if their child has more like behavioural, I don't like to say misbehaviour, but like is showing more of their emotions or big feelings with one parent, it means their relationship is poorer. But actually it's the opposite. It means that you're the safe parent, that they feel able to just show how they're feeling with you. So some parents may see their child have greater tantrums in their house, and that can be why. It's similar to children who behave really well at school, and the teachers are like, oh, they're delightful, they follow the rules, they're great, and then they come home and they kind of melt down, and it's because they've been holding that in and they feel safe to show you that at home. So that's one of the reasons. There's a parent they just feel safer, more comfortable with sharing big feelings with. Another thing can be about routine, especially for this age range. It can be that one household has a routine that just fits a bit better for the child than the other. Or, sorry, I can hear some noise. It's not me.
Can everyone just turn off their microphones, please, and make sure you're all on mute?
Don't worry, I'll carry on. Sorry. I just want to make sure that I don't suddenly get really loud because I can't hear. So it can be that if the routines are different, then one of the things you can do as a parent is try and learn from each other. That obviously is dependent on your relationship with each other. But there might be things that one parent is doing in terms of routine that works better in one house than in the other. And that can be something that you adapt and think about. Especially with two different households, there's different things that you might be doing. Those are the two main reasons why a child might be behaving differently in each house. Children thrive on routine and predictability. So usually the houses that are more predictable and have more of a structured routine, children will look or appear to look more settled than when it's quite spontaneous and chaotic. But also, I really want to say this, especially today, no matter what is happening right now, you need to all be really gentle and kind with yourselves and each other, because it's a really tough time. Everybody's routine's out the window. Your children will be feeling this, but you'll also be feeling this and holding this. So just, the routines are important, but it's basic things like eating, time for play, sleep time, awake time. The rest, work around it. It's impossible at the moment to just kind of have normality. So I'm aware of that, and I know you're all experiencing that as well. So those are things to think about, but also be kind to yourselves, that you're not going to make everything, perfect at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. The next one, my son has ADHD and takes things literally. His anxiety levels have been through the roof through COVID. Because he was told we couldn't see people because of COVID, he was convinced if he saw someone, he would infect them and make them die. So far, I've been unable to convince him otherwise. Do you have any tips?
Really hard. I think for this family, this question is really difficult, because autism means something different for every child, but often it does mean very concrete thinking, very rigid thinking. So what you say to your child, but any child, really matters, especially if they're little. The language that we use really is very powerful for children. This child has heard somewhere that COVID kills. It could be on the news. It could be just through hearing adults talk about things, and understandably that is frightening. And so I think it's about how you communicate now what is safe and what isn't safe. And that's the language that I would use. I would talk about safety. And I would try, it's really hard if your child has autism and they're very rigid, to kind of make things flexible. So I think it's about talking about it like in very concrete ways, but honestly. So it might just be that you talk about what's going to happen this week. You don't talk long term. You don't make general statements. You talk about what is safe this week. Because also with us at the moment, everything changes pretty much every 24 hours sometimes. So you can't really make big statements. So it is about talking about what is safe for this child to do. I think if at the moment they don't feel safe meeting with other people, perhaps being quite gentle about not pushing them to do that yet, as long as it kind of fits with their everyday. I know lots of schools are closed, so maybe this child has a bit more time and you as a parent have a bit more time to kind of prepare him or her to what's going to happen. And then the preparation is very much about talking it through, making things feel safe. It's anxiety that stops children from being able to socialize with others. And it's the same for children with autism. He's scared. So you need to kind of think with your child using language that fits for them. And if you need further support, then I would recommend you have a one-on-one with a professional who has some expertise in autism, and they can guide you through kind of writing a social story is what I would call it. So a story that makes sense to your child that you can read with them over several days to prepare them. And that often gives them that sense of predictability and comfort and safety. So do reach out and seek support if you're really struggling. Don't just sit there with it. Hope that helps. This is a tricky one without knowing the family or the child.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. The next one we have, my daughter has been extremely emotional and very clingy with me lately. This started around the second week of December, just after her dad packed his suitcases intentionally in front of her, hugged her and told her he was going to stay with a friend. It's now a year, and as it's Christmas, I think she assumed he would be coming back, hence the behaviours when he's not returning. Can you please advise me on this, as I'm concerned about her mental and emotional well-being, and I'm struggling at times to manage, especially when she is crying. She was 4 when he left.
Oh, this is really sad. I'm really sorry to whomever this has happened to. It's a really tricky situation. There are lots and lots of questions I would want to ask this parent, particularly about, are they still in conversation with this other parent? Do they know where they are? Is there any information that they can offer, like their child, a little bit more of? Have they walked out and they're never coming back? That's it. And it sounds like at the moment it's been a year, so my guess is they haven't seen him for a year, but I don't know. I would definitely hear your child out. So they were 4 when the other parent left. I think it was the dad, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Talk to your child, because at 5 they don't have an understanding of what it means when people leave. So she will be expecting her parent to come back. So you need to sit with your child, and this is a really difficult ask that I'm giving you. You need to sit and just listen to your child's feeling. Listen to the crying. You don't need to fix it. She just needs somebody to hear how sad she is. You just need to listen to it. Use drawing, because at her age she's really little. Use drawing and photographs. Show photographs of dad. Talk with her about what she misses, what she thinks, where she thinks he is. He said he was staying with a friend, so she, let your child explore what all of this means for her, and just sit with it. You don't need to fix, just stay curious and listen. And then you can validate and acknowledge how sad it is that daddy left. I would reassure this child that daddy left, but not to leave her. So I would reassure your child that it's nothing to do with them, that daddy's left, and if you don't know anything, you just be honest. You say, I also don't know where daddy is. He walked out on you and me, but that's not your fault. And possibly it's not your fault either as a parent. So you can say, that's not my fault either. This was daddy's choice, and it's really sad and it hurts, and I can hear it, and you can come and talk to me anytime you like about your daddy. And even if I don't know the answers, you can ask me questions and we will try and figure them out together. That's the kind of thing I would say to a 5-year-old. and just offer that space. You're her safe parent. You are the only one who's there. And at 5, some of the things she might be crying and scared about is not just daddy walking out, because it was so sudden and with no explanation. Your child might also be worried that you're going to walk out. And you might think, well, that's not going to happen. Your child doesn't know that. So you need to also offer lots of reassurance that you're there. You're not going anywhere. You're not packing your bags. You and her, you're sticking together. So important for children to hear that, because their imaginations are really working very hard at this age. So your child could be imagining all sorts of things. So just do that. Listen, validate, don't fix, just validate it. And then lots and lots of reassurance about you, what you're offering, the emotional space, the safety, the presence, and that will be enough. I hope that makes sense.
It does, yeah, that is a really difficult one, so thank you. The next question, how do I help my 4-year-old through our separation? He and I are the ones moving house, and his dad is staying in his current home. We're not moving far away, so the location is familiar, but I'm worried about how to explain. I hadn't wanted to explain the move until the house was completed, but wondering if this is the wrong approach.
There's no wrong or right at all. I think you do what works for you. Things that really help children with this is preparation. So don't avoid the conversation. Start it when you're ready. So if you're ready now, go for it. I think it actually helps if you've got a house that you know you're going to move into, like it sounds this parent is saying. So one of the things that you can do is share photos, be really concrete about what's going to happen when. Don't make false promises. So if you don't know when you're moving into this house, you can say, I don't know when we're going, but this is the house we're going to. Show photos, maybe drive to that, or if it's nearby, walk, so you can show them the house from the outside. They can also learn kind of the route to get to the house, whether it's by car or by bike or whatever it is, like help your child kind of adjust to this change already, little by little. The other kind of couple of things that you can think about are things like when you move with your child, what are the things that your child wants to leave in this house with one parent? What do they want to take with them? And one of my suggestions is do not just move into a new house and offer your child a brand new spanking bedroom. Make sure that your child takes some things with them. Things that look like their bedroom, smell like their bedroom. So it could be the bed sheets. So it could be that they leave, this is going to sound strange, but it can be really important. It could be that they leave their pillowcase at their dad's, but they take their duvet unwashed. You don't wash it for a bit. So you let them sleep in it like 2 or 3 days. So it's got the kind of homely smell. And then when they come and stay or move into this other house, their duvet is the same duvet that they would have had in the family home, and it smells the same, because when you move into a new house, it doesn't smell the same, it doesn't look the same, it doesn't feel the same. And it's often at bedtime, at nighttime, that children's worries and anxieties come up. And some of it is not even in their heads. It's not things they're thinking about, it's things they're feeling. And if at night they kind of lay in a bed that actually smells and feels like home, it's just going to help them relax. And also if they wake in the middle of the night in a bedroom that isn't yet their bedroom because they've never been there before, if they can see things in their room that they were always able to see in their other home, again, it's going to bring them that kind of feeling of, I am home, this is still my space. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a really good tip actually with the duvet. I like that.
Yeah, and of course you're going to have to kit it out a little bit. So you can do that gradually.
Yeah.
So really think about, like, if your child has meaningful toys, which most children do, make sure they leave some in the family home and they take some. So they need, you need to share things out, and then you can grow things and expand things as and when you need to. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. The next one. So I had my son clean day and night through the first part of lockdown, and then I separated from his dad. He's dry in the day, but I can't get him clean at night. He will be 4 in January, and she's really concerned. How can she get around this?
So it's very normal for children to bedwet at night when there are worries, anxieties, or changes. And at this age, 4, It's very common just because the routines change and things are different. So my first step would be not to target the bedwetting, it would be to target the worries. So, you know, you need to talk to your child, spend a bit of time talking to your child about what they are worried about, what the changes mean for them in terms of mum and dad separating, how they're feeling. Again, similarly to my previous response, do some stuff with drawing, also do some stuff with playing. Make sure that you're not kind of telling off your child when they're bedwetting, it's not their fault. Make sure that you're reassuring them that it's okay. If they're embarrassed, particularly, lots of little kids start to get really embarrassed, like there's something wrong with me. Just make it very kind of, don't worry, if you wet the bed, we'll do this. Make sure you've got one of those plastic covers or whatever they're called, you know what I mean, waterproof covers for your mattress. And you just show your child what you have to do, but you make it very matter of fact, like it's not a problem, especially if they were dry before, which it sounds like this child was, because once you work on the worries and you offer that sense of safety to them and their body, they'll stop again. So it's just, I don't like to call it a regression because they're not really moving back. It's just like a symptom of them feeling anxiety. So that's what I would work on with this child, and also reassure you that it will pass. If they were dry at bedtime before, they will get dry again. If it carries on for, I would say, 2 months, and you've been trying to support their anxiety and offer them safety and they're still bedwetting, I would definitely say go to the doctor and just double check that they haven't got something like a UTI or constipation, which can also impact on bedwetting. So you want to get like a medical checkup if it goes on for too long.
Great, thank you. The next question is, how can I help my 7-year-old as he seems to have this anger in him and overreacts when he doesn't get what he wants? He then starts shouting and kicking things around. This has started since the separation. Also, he keeps telling me that he is sad. When I ask him why, he says it's because he wants his dad. The anger is what worries me more, as well as I can deal with him now, I don't want it out of control.
So similarly, you got to work on the sadness first. The anger is usually a protection and a symptom of something else happening. So it's often the thing that we see and want to work on the quickest, but if you don't work on the focus on what underlies the anger, it's not going to go away. So I would be offering this child lots of time and support to talk about dad. Again, draw it out, play it out. It's okay that they miss their dad, and I think when you're in a relationship that has separated, it can feel really hard to talk about the other, but don't be curious about things, because we as parents and adults, we often place our ideas on what they miss about their father or the other, when actually it might be just emotional things rather than I want you two to be together. And if the question is, why are you not together? Be really honest about it. You can be honest, but stay simple. So you can say, I often say something like, you know, we don't love each other anymore, but we still love you. We will always be a family. That often sounds really strange to people, but children need to hear that. We will always be a family, but we just don't live in the same house. Mummy and daddy don't want to be in a relationship anymore, but that doesn't mean that we won't always be a family to you, because to your child, you will always be family, mum and dad, no matter what your relationship is. A child's relationship with their mum and dad or mum and mum, or dad and dad, is totally separate to the relationship that we have in terms of a romantic couple relationship. So it's really important to reassure and talk to your child about that, because some of the anger that they're witnessing is about sadness, and it is about unfairness, and it is about lack of understanding, and what they're doing is lashing out because they see it as, this is your fault, my daddy's not here and it's your fault. So you need to kind of really focus on the sadness first, and then to work on anger, I've actually written quite a few posts on anger on my wall, obviously free to access, so feel free to read those and see if any of those ideas resonate, especially about the hitting and the kicking. But the main focus has to be on the other bit. And I would also remind your child when the anger goes off that they are a really good kid and that you love them. And I think that's so important, because for this child, for all children, but particularly for this child who feels really sad about the separation, they need to know that it's not their fault. And they need to know that you love them despite all these horrible feelings that they are showing you, because in spite of the hitting and the kicking, you're going to love them regardless, and you're not going to separate from them. So I guess this touches on a few things I've already said before, but children often imagine that if mum and dad separate, then they're also going to leave them. So you need to reassure your child that that's not the case. They can be angry. Hitting and kicking is not okay. You know, that's not safe, but you can get angry and I will love you regardless, and I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. So that's what I would say, because I could talk about this for days.
So important, isn't it? Yeah. The next one, my 5-year-old son can sit still when he's doing something he's really interested in, but for the most part he doesn't. He's fidgety and jumpy and would rather run about while eating his food. He likes to smash things, throw things, and calls it a happy mess. I'm constantly saying slow movement, soft hands to him to no avail. It's like he can't help it. He also makes loud beeping sounds while playing. Should I be worried?
This is a really tricky one. I don't know, is my answer. I think this is the kind of question where I think it sounds like you are concerned. So I would reach out to a professional who specialises in child behaviour and psychology, or your GP, and ask to have a full assessment if you're concerned that your child is not focusing on things. Although what I am hearing is that they are focusing at times when things are of interest to them. So, you know, as a parent, I think when you're concerned, go and find out more. Don't just wait, because I don't think that's ever, like, that doesn't help you with the anxiety you're experiencing. But it's very, very normal for 5-year-olds to only focus on things that they're interested in, and the rest of the time just be like, you know, bouncing balls all over the place. So what they need is lots of time to kind of run around and freely unleash all those things, which isn't smashing toys, etc. So they need a safe space to be able to do that, which is often outdoors. Kids don't care if it's cold and it's wet. Just wrap them up, take them running around in the park. And for this kind of child, like a 5-year-old boy, I would say they need it at least twice a day. So do a little bit in the morning, first thing, and then they hopefully will be feeling a bit calmer, and let them do something they're interested in when they get back. And then do it again in the afternoon, like an hour after lunchtime, something like that, which also helps with bedtimes. But if you're concerned, go and check.
Thank you. That makes sense. The next one, my son has been diagnosed with ADHD, and some of what he does and says can be extreme. He hits and shouts at his mum, stamped on other kids' chests, hit teachers at school, yet when he's with me, I don't see any of this. He's on medication now and under CAMS, but they say it's a chemical imbalance, so he can't control it yet. He's the happiest little boy when he's around me, even if I tell him he's not allowed to do something. CAMS say it's because I'm his hero and he doesn't want to disappoint me, but if he can control his anger when he's with me, why can't he when he's with his mum?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to like the first question, really similar. Yeah. I was just going to say, I'm really pleased that your child is under a specialist team. So do speak to them and ask this question, because it's an important question for you. My view is, you know, as a clinical psychologist working with children, that it can be that you are his hero, or it's a little boy, I think, isn't it? You are his hero, yeah. And mum is emotionally the safe person. I'm going to say this as a blanket statement, which isn't true always, but often it is the mum who is more of the emotional container for children, just because when they were little, you know, it's mums who go on maternity leave and it's mums who spend more time with the little ones. So we become, as women and mothers, we become the ones that emotionally contain them. So maybe that what this little boy is doing is holding on to all the chemical imbalance they're talking about, holding on to all that energy when he's at dad's, wants to be really good, and then when he goes to mum, it has to come out somewhere, so it comes out with her. But if this little boy is on medication, it should settle, and like over time it should settle as the chemical imbalance becomes balanced. And also they should be offering, CAMS should be offering you some kind of strategies, behavioural strategies, to be supporting your little boy both at school and at home. So just keep working with them. I would say join, if you can, as parents, try and join sessions together. What often happens in my kind of work with families is that, like this, is that often one parent will come but the other one won't. So I think I'm really pleased that this dad has come forward to ask this question, and I would say it sounds like you're really interested in what's happening to your little boy and the differences in his behavior and the challenges that poses. So go to those CAMHS appointments if you're not doing that already. Go with your ex-partner, be a part of it, ask questions, be engaged, and also, again, be willing to share expertise of things that work in your house that maybe mum can learn from, but also be aware that your relationship with your child is very different from your ex-partner's relationship with your child, and that is okay. So they are going to respond differently to you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The next one, my daughter is 5. She panics when she needs a wee and says she can't move. I feel like she's attention seeking and trying to monopolize my attention. Then on the other side of the coin, she ignores me if I'm saying something important that I need her to listen to. This is behaviour that she used to see towards me from my ex. What can I do to establish authority and help keep my daughter safe and not find myself totally spent and not get monopolised to the detriment of my youngest child?
So what was, I'm confused about the beginning of that question. So something about when she needs a wee?
It says, yeah, she panics when she needs a wee and says she can't move.
How old is this little one?
5.
Yeah, 5. I think some children, so that I heard kind of a few words about manipulation, I think. So when 5-year-olds learn to put, like little ones learn to potty train, sometimes the urgency is very, very rapid. And sometimes that's to do with the kind of, I'm going to get it wrong now, but like the bladder muscle, which has gone out of my head of what I want to call it. But it's very reactive. And for some children, it's slow. So like their bladder fills up and then they go, oh, I need a wee, and they go. And for some children, their bladder fills up and fills up and fills up. And the signal from the bladder to the brain to then noticing that it's full is like when it's at the brim. And so some children can start to panic that they're going to wet themselves. And that's a real thing. That isn't a manipulation. It's just real. So I would listen to your daughter, because the way that I work and the way I think about children is we need to listen to children and believe them, because regardless, there is something happening to her where she needs you in that moment. So in that moment, believe her. And if you're worried about the bladder, again, go to the doctor, have a conversation about the fact she might have a twitchy bladder, is what it's called, and it's not reacting quite like quite right, like it's too reactive potentially. And or you can also help your child by offering lots and lots of water during the day, so she needs to toilet more, a bit like you would have done when you were initially potty training. So you give lots and lots of drink, and you set up specific times where you're going to support your daughter to go to the toilet, and that helps the bladder kind of expand and shrink, and it helps that muscle, it's a muscle, it helps it practice. Because one of the things that might be happening is your child might not be going to the toilet enough times for that bladder to learn, oh, this is the point where I have to tell the brain, time for toilet. The other bit of this question is about listening. And this is something I get asked all the time. So if you have something really important you want to say to your child, there are a few things that you can do to make sure that they're listening. So one is go to your child. Don't shout it from the other side of the room. Don't call them. Don't tell them. Go to your child. Get right in front of your child at their level and look at them in the eye. So one of the ways of saying it is by saying their name, like look at, as soon as you say your child's name, they will look up, hopefully, because often children are playing or they're engaged in something else. They're distracted. They're having a good time. And when you call out and say, you need to go, go to the bath or do X, Y, and Z, they're like, don't want to. So they might hear it very distantly, but they don't want to do it. And then we do the same. So as adults, we also don't listen to instruction when we're not in the right place or frame of mind. So make sure that you look at your child and you tell them, like you would a normal conversation, you tell them the thing you want them to hear. If they ignore you, don't hear it, not listening, and that kind of, not going to do it, try and make it playful. Because the reason children don't listen is when they're not connected with you, when they don't feel like they've got a good enough relationship with you that they want to do the thing you're asking for. And especially if it's going to take them away from something they're really enjoying. Why would they? They're either going to protest or they're going to ignore you in the hope that they can just keep doing this thing that they're enjoying a bit more. So go to their level, talk to them, make it playful. So for example, they're not listening, you could go, where are your ears? You lost your ears? Hello? Can I see them under all this hair? Oh, look, they're here. Are they working? Are they working? And usually what happens is your child will start to laugh because you don't usually do that. And what's happening here? So then they're listening, then they're engaged. And they go, oh, I think they can hear me now. Hello. And you can make different voices. Make your child connect. And when they do, you go, right, it's time to put your shoes on. And if they still don't, you help them. A 5-year-old, my expectation of a 5-year-old is that you still have to do lots of things for them. Yes, they can do things, but especially this mum with a little one, they feel neglected. Your 5-year-old is feeling like, which is true, they've been replaced. So the things that they used to be able to do independently and were like, yay, I love it, they don't love it anymore. They want to be held and taken, like they want their time to be taken up by you. So you help them do that thing. And I know that's hard because you've got a little one, but trust me, it's going to take you less time and less emotional load to do that than to shout and scream at them and, why are you not doing this yet? I need you to do this quickly. You just get it done quietly. The second thing is, especially because they have a little one, spend more time with that 5-year-old. So as much as possible, and now is a really hard time, I know, but try and pass on the baby to someone in your support network. If you have somebody coming to help you, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a friend, make sure that you protect about half an hour when that person is around, 20 minutes to half an hour, where they look after the baby. They hold the baby, they coo over the baby. Babies don't need us as much as 5-year-olds do. Babies are fine. So if you feed, if you're giving them that connection anyway, and you're feeding them, changing their nappies, blah, 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 which changing nappies and kind of cooing over them can be any safe adult, doesn't have to be you. Spend time with your 5-year-old because they're the children who really need it. It's always the older kid who needs more from you than the little one. That's going to sound really weird because I know lots of parents go, but it's my baby. And some of that is about us. We want to spend time with our baby. But in order to spend time with baby, proper meaningful time, where the 5-year-old isn't kind of taking up all the time because they're wrecking something or screaming or crying, you need the 5-year-old to feel like, I've had my dose of my parent. I know I'm loved. I know I'm cared for. I've had my special time. So now baby can be taken. That's fine. If you don't do that to your 5-year-old, they're going to kick off in a way that means you have to pay attention. Like, I'm going to wet myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. So next one, my 8-year-old is what I would call an emotional eater. I don't want to focus on her weight and give her a lifetime of body issues like I have had, but also I want her to be comfortable in her body. How should I approach this, if at all?
So, there's lots of ways you can approach this. I think this is important for all parents, no matter what your child is doing with food. So the best thing you can do is model a good, healthy relationship with food. And what that means in practice is all food is good. There are no treat foods. There are no punishment foods. There are no foods for rewards. So think as an adult, as a parent, as an adult, how do you see foods? For example, cake, donuts, biscuits, sweets. How do you look at that food? Is it just food, or is it something that you're like, it's a treat and I don't eat it, or I only eat it sometimes, or when something good happens, that's when I go and get it, or when I feel sad, that's when I will eat a tub of ice cream. Think about your relationship with food and the messages that you're giving to your child, not just by how you behave, but how you offer those foods to your child. One of the best things to try in terms of that emotional eating is, and it's something I do with my child, is not having pudding as pudding. When you offer a meal, you offer it with pudding on the side. It's in front. If your child eats pudding first, That's fine. It's just food. Doesn't matter. They have the pudding. That is what you would give them anyway. So it's not if you finish your plate of food, you get pudding, or, oh, you finished, so you can have pudding. It's not that. This is the meal I'm going to offer you, and you can eat as much as you want of what I offer. So if they just eat the pudding and the potatoes, that's fine. Because it's about tolerating that they're going to make their choices about the food that they eat when you serve it, and you make the choice of what you serve. So another thing is to not kind of give them alternatives. If they sit there and they go, yeah, but I don't want potato, I don't want whatever, fish and potatoes today, I want a sandwich. You don't go and make a sandwich, you just say, this is what you get. This is your food. So it's called the division of responsibility as a model, and it's evidence-based to help children not become emotional eaters, like this parent is talking about. It helps children develop a healthy relationship with food, and it also helps us kind of think of all food as being good within balance, because it is, because children do need sugar, because there's nothing wrong with a bit of pudding, because we eat it too sometimes, and we should be modeling that kind of attitude towards food. And when things are sad, what they need is you. So going on with all the other things I've said, what they need is to talk. What they need is coping strategies to deal with emotion, whether it's sadness or, excitement. And the rewards are not food, and the punishments are also not food. So when you feel sad, you don't reach for the cake, you reach for mummy or daddy, or, you reach for someone who's going to listen and help you talk about how you're feeling. And the more you do that with your child, the more they learn this is what they need. It's not the sugar, it's not the cake. That's not going to fix the sadness. It's talking about it and developing those strategies. So I hope that helps. Whatever age this little one is, this child, don't focus on weight. If you have scales, get rid of them. Weight is not a determinant of health. And for children, the kind of weight, height, BMI is so inaccurate. It's just a number that doesn't really define healthiness. So focus more on activity, healthy relationship with food, emotional development, regulation, play, fun. Those are the things that tell you whether your child is developing healthily, not the number on the scales or the number on their genes.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps.
Perfect, thank you. The next one is kind of two parts to this question from the same member. The first question posted was around the 9-year-old is having trouble with his anger. He gets really annoyed with his siblings and absolutely loses it. When I talk to him, he gets really overwhelmed and talks about everything being terrible in 2020. I really worry for his mental health. His dad and I split up a few years ago, but his involvement has been very sporadic due to mental health and addiction issues. Now, that member then posted again a few weeks later to say that the ex has issues with addiction and has relapsed again. So she wants to tell the children what's happening as they're confused with the erratic behaviour. So how can she explain this without frightening them or feeling that they're to blame or any other damaging effects? They're 11, 9 and 6, and it's the 9-year-old that's having trouble with his anger also.
Okay, so I think this is one of those questions where it would be easier to talk together about it, or to find a professional that they feel safe talking to about this. Is a really big question that I don't think I'm going to kind of do credit here. The one thing I want to flag is I hope that there are services involved with this mum and family as a whole to protect the children, because it's not just about telling the children about dad, it's about the children being safe to see this dad. And if at the moment dad has relapsed, then I would be very, very cautious about allowing the children to see dad at all. So I'm going to just name it out there. I would expect there would be a family worker or social services involved with this family. And if there isn't, as a parent, I would really urge you to do that. It won't get the other parent into trouble. It won't mean your children don't see dad. It'll mean they are safe and you are safe, because before you can have this conversation to explain to your children why dad's behavior may be a bit erratic, what you need to make sure is that your children are safe. So if they're with you and they're not seeing dad at all, then that's fine, you can have the conversation. But if not, then you need to make sure that like they're not seeing dad unsupervised while this is ongoing, because they could be at risk, your children. And actually, if they are seeing very erratic behavior, that makes me quite concerned that they could be at risk. And it might be that the older child is managing that risk in their own way, but the 9-year-old and the 6-year-old is managing because they don't really understand what's happening. But at 9, they're in that phase of development where they actually understand a lot more than a 6-year-old, a lot more, because of their brain development. So they will understand there's something really not right with dad, but they're not like the 14-year-old who kind of goes, yeah, but that's not my fault. I know that's just dad. They're in that kind of still imaginary thinking phase. So some of it will feel really confusing to them, which is why they might be seeing the behavioral outbursts, which again are more likely to be linked to something like worries or anxiety.
This we bear that.
Right. Sorry, we've just got a couple of microphone issues, I think. Hold on. Martha, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I think something just happened with the microphones there. Sorry, carry on.
Just make sure that they're safe. Just make sure that your children are safe first before you have this conversation. Yeah, and I'm not going to go into lots of specifics here, I think, because it's the kind of thing that I would want to make sure the children are safe first.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you. The next one, my 4-year-old is displaying separation anxiety at switchovers. It can be pretty traumatic, with him crying and scrabbling to get his things so he can come. A few times I've taken him with me, as I didn't want him to feel betrayed, but he has a great relationship with his dad and they have fun. It's a lot of emotion on his little shoulders and I really don't know how to navigate it. We've done a worry doll, books about separation, changeover at both houses, train stations, me going to his dad's with him and having dinner together first. I've made a weekly calendar with cutouts of us so he knows which days are with who, but any other tips as to how we can navigate this emotionally?
You're doing all the right things. All you have to do is acknowledge and validate the sadness when you separate with your child, and accept that your child is sad and it's okay for them to be sad. You can't fix it. You know, sadness about your parents not being together is not something that you can fix. Don't feel guilty about it. You're doing all the right things to prepare your child and support them, like in a practical way. And the emotional bit is just to, one, you can say to your child, I know you're going to be really sad. Like if you're taking them or having a meal with your ex-partner, which I think is incredibly generous of you to kind of go to those lengths to support your child. When you come to separate, before you do that, you say, Mummy's going to be going in whatever, in a little while, or better even, make it concrete. So after we've read this book, Mummy's going to go home. And I know that's really hard. You don't like saying goodbye to Mummy, but I'm always going to come back. So that's something you always need to say to your child with separation anxiety. I'm coming back, and you specify when. They don't understand tomorrows and they don't understand time. So again, make it concrete. So I'm going to come back tomorrow after you go to the park with Daddy. I'm going to come and pick you up, and you know, we'll do lots of whatever you're going to do together. Now we can read another book when we're at home, or we'll have bath time, whatever it is. And you just accept it. So then they go, well, I don't want to leave you, Mummy, stay, stay, stay. And you say, I know it's so hard. I'm going to miss you too, but I always come back. I'm leaving now and I know you're sad. It's okay that you feel sad. I miss you too, darling. And I'm going to come back. That's all you have to do. This parent's doing so much already. Mm-hmm. All you have to do is to accept and tolerate that your child is sad. And it is heartbreaking as a parent when they don't want to separate. But you know, just accept, like you know, they're going to have a lovely time with Dad, and those tears are not about not wanting to leave you. They're about, I'd like you to stay here with me and be with my Daddy, rather than, I don't want to be in this place. It's not about that. And then when you leave, the tears probably switch off very quickly and they're completely fine. So just hold on to that knowledge that actually it's more about it's I miss you before you've gone. That's what those tears are about. I'm really going to miss you and I don't want to miss you. So that's all you have to do. Validate, accept, tolerate, remind them you're coming back.
Yeah, it's a hard one, and I have it with my 2.5-year-old as well. So it is really hard. So
it's really hard. I have it with my 2-year-old with nursery.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, like those tears at separation. But I know that she's actually fine when she's there. So some of it is about how you look after yourself as well afterwards, like what you do to make yourself feel a bit better, because it's really hard to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The next question, my child fights with his teddies. Should I be concerned? He is quite hot-tempered.
No, use it as an opportunity. So whatever your child is doing with their teddies, try and see if you can join in and use it as an opportunity to teach your child skills about anger, about ways that he can like put that anger energy in a better way. You know, if they're like always fighting, like bring another teddy going, oh, that looks painful, or whatever it is, and try and use it, because role play for children is a way of them making meaning of the world. And if your child is quite hot-tempered, one of the things that might be happening is that they're replaying that in the play to try and make sense of what this anger thing is about that they feel in their bodies. So use it as an opportunity. Again, like I said before, I would even use that as an opportunity to, whatever they're fighting about, the teddies, kind of saying, you're both really good teddies. I know you're fighting, and maybe we need to work on the kicking or the hitting or the throwing, or, you know, throwing is not good, but it's okay that you're angry and you're both really good teddies. And you want to do that kind of thing so your child hears it and goes, oh, okay, hitting, no. And then you might hear your child say that to the teddies, no hitting, you know, no kicking, Teddy. So use it as an opportunity to teach your child something. Don't worry about it. Kids play with their teddies, things that they've seen or experienced, and it's their way of making sense of the world.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've only got 5 minutes.
Yeah, I've got, there's 3 more questions. What are we nearly at 2:00? God, yeah. We'll see if we can get through this one, and then we'll see what time it is. There has been quite a lot of change for me and my boy Jack. He is 12 and has dyspraxia and suffers from severe sensory processing disorder. And we lost his mum in August due to cancer. I constantly worry about how he is. I think he's fine, but I don't really know, and it upsets me sometimes, but I just want to know what I should be doing, or does he need to see a therapist?
I'm really sorry. So my heart goes out to you. My sincere condolences for losing the mum of your little one. It's really hard. Grief hasn't got an end point, and it's more about how you help your child build a relationship and keep a relationship with their mum, even though they're not alive. So if it would be useful to talk to somebody about it, by all means reach out. I know that Macmillan offers lots of support for parents who have died of cancer. And there's also, again, lots of child psychologists who work in this area. I work with grief and death a lot, but it doesn't have to be me, but I can signpost you to the right place. If you want to reach out, I can try and help. The one thing I would say with this story is I heard that it's really hard for you too. And so often what happens when as adults, we're still dealing with our own grief, which is normal, is that we try and protect our children by staying really strong and not showing them how hard it is actually for us. I would say you need to join your child in this difficult space while still being appropriate. If you get emotional and you find talking about mum really hard, tell them. Just tell them, I also feel sad. Your child will feel understood and heard and seen. If you cry about your partner who has passed away, feel free to tell your child, and then reassure them that you're perhaps seeking help, if you are, for yourself, or what you're doing. So for example, I sometimes have cried in front of my child, and I will say, I'm crying and I'm feeling really sad, but I'm okay, darling. Crying makes me feel a bit better because I'm feeling really sad right now, but I'll be okay in a minute. You don't need to help me feel better. You know, tears are good. So you also offer permission for your child to express their sadness with you, which sometimes they won't because they think it's not okay or it's not going to be tolerated. And if you can talk about this one in a way that makes sense and creates meaning to you and your child. So it might be through a memory box, it might be through looking at photos, it might be through doing things that mum enjoyed, so cooking or baking or whatever it is, you know, eating foods that remind you of this parent. But if everything I'm saying right now feels really, really difficult, do get support for you first so that you can support your child through grief. And the support is not to get rid of grief. The support is to help you emotionally navigate this space and create meaning for what's happened. And there are ways to talk about death with children very concretely, so using the word death, etc. But I don't know what of that's already happened, so I won't go into that. But again, I've got 2 IGTVs on my page and they're free. So if this parent wants to reach out, send me a message and I will tag you in so you can have a look, or I'll send the videos to you so you can listen to them. And one of them is about talking about death and the other one is on remembrance. And it feels like this might be more about remembrance, but you know, I would seek support for you, not necessarily your child. I think you are the best person to support your child through this.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm just conscious of time. It's 2 o'clock, so we've run out of time. Do you want to share your page and, you know, where we can find your resources just for people to follow up with you if they need to?
Yeah, so I don't know, because it's obviously on Zoom. I've done it before where it's on Instagram, so then people have tagged me, so it's easier because you can see the tag. But it's dr.mdc_psychology or psychologist.
I'll post it in the meeting.
Yeah, if you post it, it'll be easier. So feel free. You know, everything's there. Like I said, I've done some IGTVs as well. So maybe just look at the ones that are useful to you. I've also got a website and there's loads of resources. And actually yesterday, I put out a book list, which you can reach through the link in my bio. There's also a resources page on my website, which is pretty similar with some probably extra bits because you can download them as PDFs. But the book list, it's just an Amazon book list, but it's on themes. And because I do work with a lot of single parents and I also work with lots of parents going through separation and divorce, there's a whole section on there as well. So in case that's useful to you. And also recently I asked about topics for my page, and the one that has come up is about separation and divorce. So I'm going to be talking about that at some point this month, a little bit more. So, you know, and there's moving home. I've written a post on moving home. So have a look at my page. And if there's something specific you want to know about, let me know. And if I've written something, I will share it with you. And if, you know, I haven't, then I'll either talk to you about it or think about it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, I hope everyone found that really useful. You know, none of the questions were mine, but I found it really useful as well, just to get your perspective. And I think when you talk about validation, that's really important. And that's something I know that that I definitely need to work on as a parent as well, like the validating the feelings.
You also need to validate them for yourself as a parent, which is something I talk about a lot on my page as well. Like, make sure that you just acknowledge and validate how you're feeling, particularly at the moment. It is such a hard, challenging time, especially for single parents. It is so hard. So just, you know, acknowledge it. You can't do everything. And it's okay if you're feeling like sad or angry or just, you know, things are just too much. Don't push those feelings away. Just actually hold them for a little bit. Give yourself that validation. And if possible, reach out and talk to somebody who will also give you a bit of comfort and support for how you're feeling, because all your feelings are valid. I've actually done a really silly, well, it's not silly, but a little reel on that, on feelings, which people seem to adore. So feel free to look at that if you need a little boost of what I just said.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure we will speak to you again soon.
Okay. Hope everybody has an okay week.
Thank you, Andrew.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.